everyone. I hope this finds you well. I was just putting together a couple of axe blocks for future workshops, and I wanted to just kind of discuss what I'm doing, the different ways that you can put together an axe blocks, maybe different features and characteristics of axe blocks that can make your life easier and can kind of save you any added injury potential. I had somebody reach out and let me know that having an axe is a great thing to start when you're carving spoons, but it's as important to have something to swing that axe onto safely. Myself personally, I was working in an apartment for quite a long time. I carved in an apartment for probably close to 2 years, and my setup was a piece of cherry sitting on top of some industrial foam on a footstool. And I was sitting while I was axing, and it worked. It was fine. You know, I wasn't hunched over too far. It was high enough for me to keep my shoulders back and my back straight, which is really important because there's so many other parts of carving where your body's hunched over. It's nice to bring the axe work up a little bit and pull your shoulders back if you can. But right now I have a bit more space, and I cut down, there was some storm-fallen eucalyptus, and I wanted to see what it felt like to use as an axe block. So I thought this was a really good chance to show you what I'm doing in a moment. So as you can see, these have been pegged in at an angle. I'm doing this one right now. I've already cut the angles on these. So the idea is that you set this angle here to where you want pulled off the axe block. I'm sorry if my explanation of the geometry isn't quite clear. I'll do what I can. And then you want this piece here level with the ground, or parallel with a flat ground surface. Basically, what you want to make sure you're doing is when you're swinging the axe and there's downward pressure, this base piece is catching a lot of that pressure. So you want, I would say, at least half of the leg supporting that pressure. It's probably okay if you happen to have a little less out on the side. It's really important to have as much on the bottom as you can. Talking about different axe block design, there are a bunch of different ways to set up an axe block. You can literally just have a tall stump. There are carvers that do. It's amazing. It's probably the best because what you're trying to do is limit as much movement and have the most stable environment to be able to swing an axe, because you know an axe is a relatively dangerous thing if it's not used properly. It's a very sharp edge, it's a heavy blade, it can cause a lot of damage, so you want to make sure that whatever you're swinging towards has as much stability as possible. So a lot of people, as an alternative to how I'm cutting these legs in, they will cut a mortise and tenon in underneath, so they'll literally put them in directly underneath the block, which is a fantastic way to do that. I would probably do it that way, but I just don't have a tenon cutter or a reamer with me, but I do have a sliding bevel and some really simple tools. That's a really good accidental segue. Talking about the tools needed to do this, you can do this all by hand. You can do it with a saw. It's really helpful to have a sliding square. I'm not sure what these are called again. I always call them a sliding square, an adjustable square, sliding bevel, something like that. I'm sorry. Let me know in the comments what this thing's called, because I'm not looking it up right now. But this is really good to set your angle. Sit this on the bottom of your block when it's upside down and face it out. That's what I did with this. Really important. Pencil's really important. A set square or a speed square, also super important, just to be able to cut flush, have all your lines marked. Obviously really nice to have a tape, because you know it's you need a tape. And then for me, I'm just using battery powered skill saw and an impact driver, because what I did here is I'm using structural screws. So this is I've got some experience with decking and construction, and I use structural screws for stair building, and it's so solid. There's such a strong bracing foundational screw. You can definitely do something bigger. You can use lag bolts. You could use, something that's, as long as it's galvanized or treated or coated, that's totally fine, because you want to make sure, obviously, if it's green wood or even if it's dried logs, there is going to be moisture that'll get in. You want to make sure that if these are living outside, or even if they're just around moisture, that they're not going to rust, because you want, obviously, the legs to stay on. So I pre-drilled these, and then once I'd lined them up, I pre-drilled into the log itself, sunk in the structural screws, and yeah, let's talk about the angle a little bit. Right, so set up the axe block. You might notice that right now the block itself has a little bit of a curve downward. I could flatten this out. I might still. I haven't flattened these legs yet. I literally just attached it. So I could basically lift this one side, stick something underneath, and then evenly draw out the bottoms of all of these level, which I might still. But one nice thing about having it at a downward angle is, because I'm left-handed, when I hold my spoon blank, I tend to want it at a bit of an angle, so that when I'm axing, that force comes together. If I'm holding it straight upright and axing down, there's almost more force pushing away, which can increase the chance of the blanks spinning away from you. So a little bit of angle is fine. It's totally personal preference at this point. I think personally, it's nice to have your axe block essentially sitting where your hand is just below 90 degrees, because if it's up at 90 degrees, you're not really maximizing the weight of the axe. You kind of imagine, any further than that, and you're pushing the axe down. But I like to have it just below 90 degrees, so that's an open angle there, and it might shift a little bit when I adjust the legs. A flat block is great. That being said, I think it is really nice to have some ridges or contour or some kind of gripping on the top, because you want let's just say you've got a piece of wood, you want to make sure that it's not going to slip. So some people will do chainsaw cuts in a grid, like a hash pattern, which is cool. Other people create a little kind of stop. They'll cut down into the log and then have like a raised platform. Others, myself included, I tend to cut just a notch out of the side, just so that I can lean the spoon into it. I might do a couple of different things, because these are all for workshops, so I'll end up having 3 blocks up and running, and so I might have each block be different so that people can kind of see which one works for them, because at the end of the day, everyone's different, and the most important thing is just that you're axing safely, that you feel comfortable. That's it. You can listen to a lot of different people talking about a lot of different ways to do things, but the most important thing is what works for you. I can't stress that enough. If you're standing and you've done something that someone has set up for you and it doesn't quite feel right, change it, because you're the one swinging the axe. You're the one who needs to feel safe and comfortable and confident, because that's how you're going to improve. Another thing, now that I've put the legs on, I just wanted to chat about a few things that really help out when some accessories that can really help your axe block be more comfortable and more efficient. One thing is, I kind of put it on all of mine these days, is an axe loop. I just find that having your axe as close to hand all the time as possible is just really handy. I've also got a little spot here, a clamp, where my mallet, some people use a maul just for splitting, and then over on this side, I've got a little brush, because as funny as it sounds, it might sound ridiculous, but keeping the top of your block really clean is a fantastic habit to get into, because there can be a bunch of dirt and grime from excess bark and all the other stuff. So it's good to keep your block clean so that the axe doesn't get dull when you're burying it into the block. Obviously be mindful of any timber that you're working with, if there aren't any nails or screws or anything like that. Okay, and here is the finished block. I mean, obviously this is pretty overpacked right now. You know, the things like the fro and the mallet and the brush are overkill, but it's the little things that if you're, you know, axing out 15, 20 blanks in a day, those little motions really do slow you down if you have to, you know, go and find your axe somewhere. So as you can see, I've put just that little edging in there where I can rest my spoon. I've just done a little bit of axe work here, carved out my first spoon on the block, and there are definitely a few things that I would change. Yeah, there are a few things that I would change, so make sure you can see me here. The few things that I think I would change would be, I think that angle is a little bit too aggressive now, and it's kind of doing the opposite of what I'd like it to, where any pressure is giving it a little bit of slip. I think I underestimated how hard eucalyptus is. It's really hard wood, so everything's just skidding off the surface. Whereas if you use something like, I don't know, fir, for example, a really relatively soft wood, you can really bite in to the wood. Even the billet that you're holding can kind of press into the wood a little bit more. Sorry, spun around again. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to potentially flatten this a little bit, and I am going to score some hatch marks on the top, just to see what it does, just to see if it does give me that grip, now that I know that the wood is super solid, and it will be able to take some kind of, you know, half-inch, so 1.5 centimeters deep scoring. That will probably give me a little bit more grip. But aside from that, I'm really happy. It feels super solid. I'm sorry that it got so dark and that it didn't pick up while I was axing, but yeah, it's really solid. It feels great. I'll adjust the top a little bit, and yeah, I think it's good to go. So thank you again. Thanks again so much for watching. Yeah, if you like what you see, please subscribe and like the channel. It really means a lot, and I hope this finds you well.